The reason we don't have the best sex oftentimes is because we don't actually like the sex we're having. And if we really
Ding,
liked
ding,
it,
yes.
really liked it, for real, we'd want to do it more often. That's hard to admit to ourselves. It's really hard to admit to our partner because we're not told as young people that
Yeah.
sex changes, that our bodies change, that our preferences change. And if you're in a long-term monogamous relationship, there's an expectation that things aren't going to change.
Welcome to Sip with Summers, the podcast where we talk about sex, intimacy, and pleasure. Because someone has to, and let's be honest, it may as well be me. I'm your host, Jennifer Marie Summers, board certified sexologist, certified sex coach, menopause coach in training, and your favorite inappropriate friend with a microphone. Around here, we cover everything from why is my libido ghosting me to is it normal to fantasize about pizza during sex? Spoiler alert, yes. So grab a drink and let's get into the good stuff because pleasure is your birthright and awkward is my love language. Let's spill, sip, and say the things most people whisper. Welcome to the show. Hey, everybody. Today's episode is for anybody who ever thought, I used to feel sexy, but now not so much. Maybe it's been a while since you felt turned on by your partner or even by yourself. Maybe life got in the way, or maybe your body feels differently. Maybe desire is just quiet now. Today's guest is here to help us find a way to win that back. I'm so excited to be joined by my mentor, my friend, and the woman who helped shape my own coaching experience, Amanda V. Amanda is a board-certified sex coach and sexologist, and she helps individuals and couples reconnect with their sexual selves and with each other. Her work is rooted in compassion, education, and a deep belief that everyone deserves to feel good in their body and in their relationships.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here, Jennifer. Nice to see you.
I love having you here, Amanda. Thank
I
you
may
for
have
taking the
coached
time
you
to
into
come on
starting
here.
this podcast.
You absolutely did. I still remember that day when you were like, when are you going to get the microphone and get
For
it
real.
done?
I'm proud to be a part of it and to be here. It's like full circle. I love that.
I'd love to have you share it with the listeners. What led you to become a sex coach and a
I
sexologist?
was a theater kid. I got a theater degree, which doesn't translate into careers so much. I became a stay-at-home mom. And after both of my sons were born, I wasn't feeling great about my body, kind of had lost my sense of self and decided to go to a fitness class at my local YMCA. At the end of the class, the instructor got a round of applause, and I was like, that's it. That's easier than community theater. I want a round of applause. I'm going to be a fitness instructor. 6 months later, I was teaching. So that, I had no intention. It was just sort of this thing that I fell into. And what I discovered was my passion for helping people achieve their goals and essentially overcome hurdles that they didn't realize that they typically had put there themselves. So fitness classes led to personal training certification. My personal training clients were like, oh, I wish I had you outside of the gym, which led to a very intense life coaching certification. And I became an ICF life coach. All throughout, I grew up in a sex-positive household. My mom was a nurse. We lived on a farm, like all of these perfect storm situations where there was no such thing as TMI. I was not raised with shame about my body or pleasure or what bodies do and what creatures do as far as enjoying pleasure, having sex, reproduction, death, all of that stuff. So that's just a part of my syntax. It's just how I talk about it all the time. And my classes, my clients, my life coaching clients, our classes would end or sessions would end, and I'd just sort of be chatting with them about the rest of their day. And I'd say, what are you doing this weekend? And the women that I was working with would say, oh, it's Frank's birthday. I guess I have to give him a blowjob. And I was like, oh, that's so sad. what a sad way to look at sex when this woman was becoming healthier, changing her physique, getting that job promotion, changing all of these things in her life, but still believed that sex was impossible to change. It just had to be the way it was, and there was no other option. I decided to become a sex coach. Like so many other people, I thought I invented it. I didn't know it existed. I thought I was going to take this really cool concept of, well, at the time, fitness and life coaching and sex and create this sort of other thing. My life kind of changed at that point. It was 2020. I pivoted. I got a divorce. I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast. And I thought about going back to school to become a sex therapist because that's the only thing I knew existed. And as it turns out, it's not, because I don't really want to deal with trauma. I don't really want to deal with mental health issues. And to become a
Mhm.
therapist really is all of those things. I wanted to be a personal trainer for sex. I wanted to take an otherwise healthy person and help them achieve their goals as it pertained to sex and intimacy. And I Googled how to be a sex coach. I found Sex Coach U, which is both of our alma maters where we got our certifications. And that led to not only my certification, but a career. That Sex Coach U hired me as their coaching skills coordinator. And I've done that for a few years. And that's where I met you and so many other really talented sex coaches around the country and the world. I have just left Sex Coach U now to pursue my coaching career full time. So it's about time I get out there and do this full time. That's my story.
The world is
Thank
so
you.
lucky to have you. That's a great story. And you and I both know how life-changing sex coaching can be. We've witnessed it in our peer coaching and just with our clients, but some people still don't know what sex coaching is and maybe what it isn't. So can you
Absolutely.
elaborate on that a
It
little bit?
is when I meet with somebody, the first thing they ask is they usually misname me and call me a sex therapist. So I say pretty much the first thing I say is I am not a
Same.
therapist. Therapists typically deal with the past, they deal with past trauma. What made you who you are? I don't do that. I'm happy to refer out to therapists, but what I do is, as a coach, help you identify your goals, whether those goals are serving you, and how to reframe them if necessary. And then our sessions are very goal specific. So I am not a talking board just for someone to talk at me and feel better about themselves because they talked at me for an hour. My work is to help them identify what they want, what they really want, what they are maybe afraid to
Mhm.
talk about with their partner, maybe even afraid to talk about or acknowledge themselves. Coaching starts with a sort of top level goal. And then I ask some questions and we kind of figure out that, in fact, their goal is this other thing, this deeper thing. And then I ask some more questions and sort of uncover that it's actually this nugget. This is what they really want. And you can't get to this without that. And you can't get to this without this and that. So it can feel very therapeutic, but it's present tense. It is what's happening for you right now.
Mhm.
And as far as achieving that goal, a lot of people can't and don't achieve their goals because they set it too big. And it's great to have sort of this long-term goal that's way out there. But in fitness terms, it's like somebody saying, I want to run an ultra marathon, 100 miles, but they are having problems walking. So the first goal is to help them walk, maybe jog. The idea is, okay, if it seems too hard, it's probably because you're not starting small enough. And a lot of the work that we do is helping people find the thing that they really want to do that lights them up. The reason we don't have the best sex oftentimes is because we don't actually like the sex we're having. And if we really
Ding,
liked
ding.
it,
Yes.
really liked it, for real, we'd want to do it more often. That's hard to admit to ourselves. It's really hard to admit to our partner because we're not told as young people that
Yeah.
sex changes, that our bodies change, that our preferences change. And if you're in a long-term monogamous relationship, there's an expectation that things aren't going to change and we're going to stay these people forever and we're always going to be wanting the same things forever. If, I don't know, that was my marriage. That may not be everybody's relationship. But that is setting yourself up for disaster. A coach can help you say those things in a safe space. Okay, now that I've said it, what do I do about it? Okay, what do you want to do about it? And I know that seems so simple, but if I just start with that's nothing, it's too scary, right? Like that question comes towards the end when action steps are consensual. I'm not going to just start with action steps, even if you want to start with action steps. Like, just tell me what to do. If it were that easy, you could Google it and you do it. But since you're not, or you haven't, let's talk about what you really want to do, what you can do. Smaller, make it smaller. What's the thing that happens before that? What does that look like? How will you know when you've done it? What do you want to feel like? These questions are coaching.
Yes. And it's the goal focused and the action oriented steps that really drew me to coaching. And just with my personal experience working with you and other people, seeing how those little baby steps can create such an avalanche effect for continued growth and working through those concerns and those blockages. So I just love that there's a path forward with coaching.
It's not a
Awesome.
forever thing. It's coaching should be finite,
Yeah.
which doesn't make my job easier as far as getting new clients. But it really, coaching should only be 1, 4, 6 sessions or a couple of months. It should not go on forever and ever, because if that's the case, then I feel like one of us isn't doing our job. So I love that about coaching too, that it's not just this therapy that you agree to commit to forever.
Yes, definitely an end date. Absolutely. Now, Amanda, let's talk about the big stuff that tends to push sex and intimacy in the back burner. You mentioned things like parenting, stress, also like hormones and illness, I know are a big thing for people. But what are the most common reasons that people start feeling disconnected from their sexual
There's
selves?
a lot of reasons, and I don't necessarily want to just say it only is ever one thing, but there's a lot of things that could happen. So
Hmm.
yes, a change of life event, anything that changes your mental health and your point of view. So definitely new identities. I'm a mother, or I am a empty nester, or I've been working a lot with women lately, so using that gender term a lot, but transitioning, right? I'm coming out, or I am out, and now how do I do this? I know how to do sex, but maybe how to do dating. Perimenopausal people, or andropausal, men
Hmm.
or women or anybody, any gender, who is getting older and their hormones have shifted and their body is changing. That just mean that sex is over. But a lot of us don't look at slightly, as I get there, slightly older adults or much older adults. Not sure. Unless you're there yourself, youth doesn't look at that as this juicy, sexy time of life, which it absolutely can be. But you have to look at yourself differently. You have to transition your identity. So yes, I think that is a big thing. So if you've gone through any kind of physical change, emotional change, identity change, any one of these things can affect, and do absolutely affect, your sex life, your intimacy, your libido. And that's not just with your partner, but simply by yourself. I had a client yesterday who was perimenopausal, and she was interested in increasing her libido, but had no why. There was no like, yeah, there was no like, I don't know why,
Hmm.
because I'm an old lady. Old ladies aren't sexual. And I was like, yes, they are. let me give you permission to be
Stay
sexual.
on.
You can absolutely
Yes.
start dating yourself, start flirting with yourself, start with these really tiny baby steps. She wanted to get right into intercourse with her partner. And I was like, okay, that's a great long-term goal,
Mm-hmm.
but short-term, what are you doing that feels comfortable now? If sex doesn't feel comfortable, if kissing doesn't even feel comfortable, can you talk? Can you flirt? Can you flirt with yourself? Look in the mirror and find the things that
Mm-hmm.
you like about you. This new body that you're in that is unfamiliar. This new time of life that you're in that's unfamiliar. You have to find the value in that.
Definitely what I'm hearing are the baby steps and starting off small. And of course, we have that big picture goal we want, but it can feel so overwhelming to move into intercourse when we don't even like ourselves or want to kiss our partner. Thank you for mentioning that, Amanda. Another thing I'm curious about is when somebody starts to feel like something's off with their sex life or they're out of touch with themselves, what's one of the first steps that they could take to getting more
That's a
reconnected with
great question
themselves?
with themselves. So I think about people who identify as male and what could possibly
Mm-hmm.
creating that sense of out of touch with themselves. For a lot of people who identify as men, and I'm going to say men for ease of conversation here,
Sure.
when erections don't come as easily, or they notice that they're not orgasming as strong as they used to, and their whole
Mm-hmm.
identity is based on their ability to perform, that can really mess with their heads. People who identify as women are exactly the same way, if not more so. If you're anything like me, you were probably sexualized way too young in life, probably as a child or pubescent girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
And
8.
that has been your identity
Uh-huh.
for a very long time. And then something can change where you start doubting where you lose your own sexual currency. This concept of my
Hmm.
value is into my ability to be sexual. If you are going through libido changes because of hormones, or maybe you have never really been a sexual person and no one has ever talked to you about being asexual or gray sexual, and you don't really know what that is. And you think that maybe there's just something wrong with you because you're not like anybody else. You don't identify like the way they do in the movies or videos. All of those people can still like themselves. They can still find the thing that appeals to them. Now, maybe it's sexual, maybe it's something that's more sensual. And I say start with your senses, start with embodiment, start with mindful
Hmm.
pleasure. So, what do you like? What makes you really happy? What are the sensorial aspects of those things? So, even if you're a real nerd and you're a real logical person, I bet you like the sound or the feel of your calculator, or the smell of your books, or the sound of a pencil on paper, or a very particular pen. People are really into that sort of thing. Okay. All right. Nerds aside, anybody else,
Mm-hmm.
there's the feel of warm shower, or the smell of your favorite food or dessert, or the feel of your bed sheets when they're clean. I don't know anybody who doesn't appreciate the feel of fresh, clean bed sheets. It's sort of like universal,
Yeah.
maybe. I don't want to make assumptions, but
Yes.
there are so many things, so much sensation that our body takes in that we take for granted, and that in fact we have to phase out. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to concentrate on life and feeding ourselves and doing the things. But training ourselves to be more aware, to become aware of those things, to become more mindful of all of the ways we can enjoy pleasure is the first step in regaining sexual pleasure if we feel like we've lost it. So noticing, and again, when I say baby steps, this has nothing to do with sex, but it is that concept
Mhm.
of how much pleasure do you let yourself feel in your day to day, where you're not rushing around on your phone, truly numbing out so
Mhm.
that we don't feel anything. If we don't feel the bad stuff, we don't feel the good stuff. That is so many people's life story, right? They have chronic pain or life is
Yeah.
very overwhelming, right? Their senses are even so sensitive that if they let themselves feel, it becomes too much. Creating a safe space where you can focus on a few pleasures at a time and be very mindful about that. Acknowledging the
Mhm.
somatic sensations that happen from pleasure, your stomach sort of softening and your butthole unclenching and the muscles in your neck sort of relaxing, your jaw, your forehead. All of these things happen and need to happen in order to enjoy, really enjoy sex and intimacy. The feeling of being safe is necessary, completely
Mhm.
necessary to feel pleasure. So we start to find the little things that we can acknowledge. That becomes a
Mhm.
practice that then is sort of like, okay, I am safe here or I am not safe here. And I need the lights to come down low. I need you to brush your teeth or take a shower. I need to not have piles of laundry because I am at work and I can't relax because it's not safe because there's all
Yeah.
of this stuff that I need to do. And so a lot of partners who are, have responsive desire or responsive arousal partners are like, "Oh, she needs the stars to align in order to be turned on." Do it. Do it. Like, do you want it or not? Do you want her to feel safe and be able to feel intimate with you? Fold the goddamn laundry. Take the shower. It's okay.
I know from my own experience that the stories we tell ourselves, like, I'm broken or this is just the way things are now, tend to be big roadblocks. So, what are some of the internal narratives that you might hear from your clients, and how do you help them shift away from that?
Another really good question. Wow. Hard hitting. So, some of the narratives that clients tell themselves, if he doesn't come, it's not sex. That I have to come in order for this to be good. That sex has to be intercourse, is another stupidly popular narrative. The penis needs to be hard in order to have pleasure. If I need lube, I'm broken. I'm not doing it right. Or he's not doing it right, or they're not doing it right. These are all really dangerous, and these narratives don't typically serve really good, juicy, pleasurable sex. These narratives are what we've been told, and they don't actually serve us. That it's sort of like you need to be 11% body fat to be happy. Not true. I mean, it's just not true. It's a lie. And it's a lie that we're told over and over and over again. And so everybody kind of feels like it's true. And it's simply not. There's a lot of ways to be, there's a lot of ways to live, there's a lot of ways to enjoy things. And a lot of the work that we do, Jennifer, as sex coaches is we use the PLICIT model. So it's permission, limited information,
Mhm.
specific suggestion, and then intensive therapy or coaching. So permission, you're allowed to not have an erection. You're allowed to enjoy the sensations on your penis without an erection. If it still feels good, it still feels good. You're allowed to use lube. If it feels good, it feels good. Let's go with that. If somebody
Mhm.
doesn't have an orgasm, that's okay if they enjoyed themselves. It's better to be more transparent and honest with each other about what we actually like and not tie up our ego and identity into whether or not this was successful. Like that metric of success, once we put it in there, pleasure goes out. out the door. Thinking about reproduction, working with
So
couples who are
true.
trying to conceive and having a
Mhm.
difficult time. When sex becomes work, it's very, very hard to make it fun and pleasurable again. And I suppose for sex workers, that is the case as well. The sexual intimacy and pleasure that we enjoy, and to be able to shift back and forth between those two doesn't come naturally for most people. So again, that metric of what is success is the worst. Yeah, I coach people on coming at that. So what else is success? Like, how can we reframe success to be pleasure rather than performance?
I do want to zoom in on the body just for a second because bodies do change, as we know. So after pregnancy, age, illness, injury, etc., what would you say to someone who's feeling disconnected from their body or struggling with physical intimacy?
My first question is, what content and media are they consuming? I get really diligent at having good media hygiene, making sure that we aren't necessarily, like, the algorithm will find a very specific box to put us in. And I want to make sure that my clients are opening their mind to what else is out there. So if they have only seen breasts looking one particular way their whole life, I'm going to encourage them to look at more breasts, vulvas, penises in a way that is
Mhm.
not shameful. It's sort of like there's limited information. I want you to see the fact that vulvas
Yeah.
look very, very different, and breasts can be more attractive if you open your mind to what they could and in fact do look like. Then, as far as body positivity, which I don't really love, I like body acceptance, body neutrality.
Love
You don't
it.
need to love it. You just hey, you don't have to love it.
Yeah. I like the
Um,
reframe.
I do recommend a bit of exposure therapy. So maybe taking off your
Mhm.
shirt and being in your bra or a tank top and finding things that you like about what starting to disrobe, finding somebody who you trust and admire and being honest with them about what you are going through and maybe asking for some support. So, who in your life do you trust that you can say,
Mm.
"Hey, I would like to maybe do this exercise with you or in front of you, and I know it's weird, but like I'm struggling with this. Would you be willing to do this with me? Here's what I need you to do. I need you to acknowledge and honor the fact that I simply need someone to observe." And maybe then you stand in front of a mirror and say, "I really like this part of myself, and I really like that part of myself." And it could be the smallest of details, but we're not going to like call out and acknowledge all of the hurtful, harmful things unless and until you're ready. I've been told, or I fear that this part of me is not so good because blah, blah, blah. Or I'm sad that I only have one breast now, or that this scar is here,
Mm.
or that this part of my body doesn't do what I want it to do anymore. And simply being seen and acknowledged is so powerful. And I know that you know that because of coaching and observing coaching, that having somebody simply hold space for you and not necessarily argue with you or stumble over themselves to make you feel better, but simply acknowledge and honor you by observing and holding that space. Now, that is a big ask for a friend, but it's something that I hope everybody has access to.
What about couples with mismatched libidos? What can they do to stay connected when desire is
Mm.
different for each
That's a
person?
toughie. So, my first recommendation is to read the book, Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski. She says it better than I could ever. And if you're not a book reader, audiobook, it's even the chapters are really well created and curated so that you don't necessarily need to read or listen to the whole book front to back if you're not. And a lot of people aren't book readers. I hold space for that.
Mhm.
If you can watch a TV show, you can listen to a chapter of an audiobook. And I think for that particular book would
Yeah.
probably have somebody in this situation riveted. She talks about accelerators and brakes. She talks about the fact that people really do fall into these
Mhm.
concepts of responsive and spontaneous arousal. And spontaneous tends to be depicted as the default because a lot of men, cis men, fall into that category, but it's not by like 90%, 10%. It's like 65, 70. Like it's not a huge disparity. But because that's sort of the male-oriented way to be, it is the default way to be, which is wrong because even if it's 50-50, it's
Mhm.
still not the default way to be. Right. Anyway, she gets into the fact that, and this is kind of how I coach people, that when there is a disparity, we first want to make sure that it's not a physiological thing, that it isn't address that it can't, it's not necessarily like somebody's medication if they're on an SSRI that's preventing them from it's like sort of dampening their libido, which happens quite a bit, or if it isn't a hormonal issue that one or the other person is dealing with. Okay, so we kind of deal with the physiological, go to a doctor, have your hormones checked. If you still kind of feel like it's a hormonal thing, you might have to fight a little harder if you identify as a woman. If you're a man, you'll probably just get a blue pill, but they will probably also do a full hormone panel and you will get your testosterone for free. But I digress. So we address the physiological. Then we kind of get into, okay, how honest are you being with each other? Is that an issue? Are you being completely honest? Is it in fact that you are a responsive person? Or is it that you actually just don't really like the thing that is being offered to you? And that is a real concern, and that is a real issue, and not an easy one to admit to every time, but if it can be improved, let's improve it. And that's kind of where I'm going to start after I address the physiological. Do both partners, but especially the responsive partner, actually like what's being offered? Because if they don't, why get excited about something that you don't like? Part 3 is, okay, no, I do like it. I really like it when I'm there. I love sex. I'm never in the mood and I don't want to go. And the analogy I use there is very much a gym analogy again. There are some people who live for the gym. They live to lift weights. They're in the weight room every day. That's their church. They get cranky if they can't lift. And then there's this other group that signs up for classes and wants to go but doesn't want to go. They drag their feet. They are like, they're stressing out all the way. What do I wear? Where's my water bottle? I got to do this to get there. And they walk into the class, the music starts, they start to move their body and they love it. And both people walk out of the gym blissfully happy. That's kind of the way this spontaneous and responsive arousal style works, if they're really responsive, right? Like they love it when they're there. They just kind of drag their feet getting there and they don't know why. So part 1 is when they're there, I want them to be very mindful about what is actually happening. Why, like, be very in the moment. And I can't say this enough. I'm going to keep saying mindful. Be aware of what's happening when it feels good. Name 10 things or 5 things you can see and 4 things you can hear and 3 things you can smell and feel, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. So it's that sort of like taking a mental snapshot of why it's so good. Journal it, write it down, do something to kind of make it real. That's 1. Part 2, and that should happen kind of every single time. Part 2 is we address the spontaneously aroused person because they can kind of start to feel resentful and angry and like, the world has to be perfect. Okay, well, could it be a little bit better? It probably doesn't need to be perfect. Are there things that you can do to help this along? Is every single touch an expectation of sex? Can we flirt? Do you flirt? Do you still flirt? Can you like make little deposits into the sexy bank throughout the week, knowing that the mind is the biggest sexual organ, right? So like we want to turn them on throughout the week without the expectation of sex. We're turning them on because it feels good. Like we're making these flirtatious comments because sex is important to us. Sex is important to them. What do they need to feel safe? What do they need to feel ready? Your job is to do those things, not necessarily and then, kind of be ready when they're ready, because that's the good part about where you are as a spontaneously aroused person. Happens whenever you're ready. Do those things. Clean up your room. Make sure you've flossed or use some mouthwash. Find out the things that your
Please.
partner needs and do those things. Not with the expectation that like, oh, I did it today. Do it all the time to lead that responsiveness into a bigger zone of spontaneity. Because if you only do it once, there's still like, I don't trust it. Do it all the time. Do the things that they need to have done. I myself identify currently as a spontaneously aroused person. And to me, that doesn't seem like too much of an ask. If I want to be able to be intimate more spontaneously, I need to do the work so that can happen.
Amanda, you have a free virtual workshop coming up in September. Can you give us a little sneak peek?
This will be the baby body bedroom workshop. So I am going to be doing a free 90-minute virtual workshop for people who are trying to conceive, pregnant, postpartum, and they are experiencing body and identity shifts that are affecting their sex life and their intimacy.
And then you also have ongoing workshops and events. How can people get on your
Love
list
that. Yeah.
so they don't miss one?
My email address is Amanda@sextalkswithamanda. You can sign up for my newsletter on my website, which is simply sextalkswithamanda.com, or you can go to my Instagram or Threads, which is @sextalkswithamanda. DM me.
Awesome. Listeners, Amanda's offering 15% off her coaching using the code SIP. You'll find that on all of the links in the show notes. But Amanda, before we wrap, I just want to ask you one more question. What is one small, loving step that someone could take today to start reconnecting?
Find your favorite sensation. Know what your favorite sensation is. Is it touch? Is it smell? Is it taste? Is it sound? What am I missing? Did I miss them? Did I get them all? Which one is your favorite? Sight. Yeah. And
Sight?
then find something in that realm that feels a little sexy. That's where you start.
Amanda, thank you. Every time I talk to you, I just feel so inspired. I always learn something new and really appreciate your honest insight.
Oh, you're
So
very
thank you so
welcome.
much.
Jennifer, it was lovely. Thank you for having me on here.
Listeners, if this conversation resonated with you, send it to a friend, share it on your social media, and let us know what landed. And don't forget to check out the show notes for Amanda's workshop, discount code, and more ways to work with her. And that's a wrap on this episode of Sip with Summers, where we laughed, learned, and probably said clitoris more times than your high school health teacher ever did. If you liked what you heard, be a gem and leave a review, share it with your favorite group chat, or send it to that friend who really needs to hear this. You know the one. For more tips, tools, and slightly inappropriate jokes, follow me on social or head to summersoflove.com. Until next time, stay curious, stay turned on, and as always, keep sipping.